Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yo, yes. Can you hear me?
Nalden? I can't seem to hear you for some reason.
Oh shit. Yo, yo, yo. No?
Nope, still can't. That's weird. Okay, let's try now. Go for it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, good.
Nice.
Nice to see you, dude. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. It's a bit hot here in London. To be honest, this is the first time today that I put a shirt on.
Summer arrived here as well.
Yeah. Well, are you based in Amsterdam?
I'm currently in Rotterdam.
Rotterdam. Okay, cool, cool. I've never been. Big port city, right?
Yeah.
Europe's largest port, or is that Athens?
Antwerp, then Rotterdam.
Antwerp and Rotterdam. Okay, interesting. Nice. Um, Let's give people a couple of seconds to arrive. I can see Daisy in the mix here. Let's throw Daisy in with an
Nice.
exceptional
Hey,
shirt.
Nalden. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
Hey, Vinay.
Hey Daisy, I love the shirt.
Thank you. I thought I would dress up. These are actually pajamas, but I thought.
No one wants to know what's under the table. Cool. I think let's wait a couple of minutes for a few others. We're obviously waiting for Neeraj and Triin, and the founder of the day, Grant, who I hope turns up. That would be awkward. We'll also have a party between us. We've got plenty to talk about just between
Exactly.
the five of us. Yeah.
Turn it into a party. What's the etiquette? Is it like, should we mute ourselves first, or is every mic on?
I mean,
I think muting means you're more likely to second guess whether you speak, right? And that's probably not as fun.
Yeah. I think we leave mics on. I may have a hilarious moment where a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old run into the room.
Amazing.
It's absolute chaos, like that guy that was famous on TV.
I love it. You definitely shouldn't shoo them. You should just get them to also lend their perspective.
Yeah, I might just
And their thoughts on smart cities. I'm sure they have many.
might just get them involved. Yeah. Okay. Cool. We have Triin here. Let's bring her up.
Sweet. Hey, Triin.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Ooh,
Hey.
I like your beamers.
Yeah, I'm loving that.
Oh, sorry. It's me. What do you love?
Well, you also, but I mean the beamer. I think that is the one thing I miss from Zoom is creeping on people's interior decor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. No, this is my boyfriend, actually. I have done any decor here.
Oh, wow. He's done a good job.
I know, right?
This is one of those check yourself moments because I was like, really? Your boyfriend? And I'm like, Daisy, now.
Yeah, I'm not good at this home decoration. No.
I do love the people that have nailed. I think Daisy and I were speaking to someone who they had a virtual background that looked like the most amazing living room, but it was so hard to tell that we had to ask, like, dude, is
Yeah, because sometimes it's super obvious and then it's awkward. But then
Yeah, sometimes I'm asking like, oh, I love your background. Where are you? And it's a virtual one.
they're like, oh, my yacht that I own. And you're like, oh, okay, sorry. Never mind, carry on.
or all those VCs that went to exotic locations, but then tried to find a really fake, not fake, but a really low-key room to do the call.
Yeah.
Great time. Screen time.
It's always really funny when Alex goes home because he always ends up in some like old part of his parents' house that doesn't really get used, so it's like extra fancy, and then he has to explain to all of the founders that he's not really naff. It's great.
Okay, awesome. Let's get going. We have Neeraj here. We have Pascal here. There's a lot of people. And I've got Grant here. Grant, you're in the waiting room. I'm just going to set up the conversation and then bring you in. Cool. So let's do a little round robin of intros. I'll just set up what this whole thing is about first, and then I'll just pick you up on my screen one by one, and let's do it. So, back to startup support / office hours, working titles. It's our show. We can call it what we want. It's basically about bringing good people together, which are the other people here on the stage with me, to give good advice to founders, pre-seed or seed, across anything that they're really facing challenges with. Fundraising, ops, product, marketing, sales, team dynamics, whatever it might be. And for us to just come together and give them no bullshit advice and try and have some fun doing it. This is the launch episode, so something will probably go wrong, and it will be my fault. That's okay. We've established that. Let's just start with a quick round of intros. Nalden, why don't you kick us off? Just tell us who you are, a bit about your background, and like what kind of things you invest in at the moment, if you have a specific area.
First of all, I think if shit goes wrong, it's probably my fault.
Okay, great. It's your fault. Even better.
I think I've been a founder for quite some time. I previously founded Wetransfer and took that to something that people are familiar with it, and I left after a decade of building the company, and then I started another startup called Huddle, which is a video messaging app, and alongside that I do angel investments and seed investments and shit in teams that I think can go somewhere. So I'm really investing in people, not specifically investing in a certain direction or theme. However, it is usually consumer related, people related, let's say that.
I think we should pause a second. This is the guy who created and scaled Wetransfer. Awesome. We have an awesome investor, operator, founder in the house, who also has arguably the most boring background along with me, which we need to work out what's going on there later. Given that you guys did some amazing work on promoting illustrators, designers, and all that, kind of in one of the journeys of the chapters of Wetransfer. Okay, cool. Thanks, Nalden. So glad to have you here. Thanks for being with us. Daisy, why don't you go next?
So my name is Daisy. I work with BACT alongside Vinay and Pascal, and my focus is on network, which is basically trying to find the ecosystem of wonderful humans who might be able to support BACT in finding opportunities to invest, in diligencing or winning some of those opportunities, and then in post-investment support. I basically get to make friends for a living, which is really wonderful. And then alongside that, I focus on our sort of diversity and inclusion strategy on the investment side in terms of initiatives to restructure how we do things, and also to maybe intervene even outside of BACT's wheelhouse in diversifying our portfolio and ideally the broader ecosystem.
We're actually all here because of Daisy.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It's true.
She is the glue, but I feel like glue is an undersell.
Yeah.
The glue maybe. Anyway, I've been hanging out with kids too often, clearly. Neeraj, why don't you go next?
Cool. Thanks for having me. I've been a founder. I'm from the U.S. I grew up right outside San Francisco. I was a founder for a number of years. Started an e-commerce business and then a food delivery company in San Francisco. And then I hopped the pond and I moved to Berlin. And now I run a venture fund that is focused on tech that can impact food system or the climate. So that's my primary focus of interest. But I angel invest in things outside of that, like education or other kind of consumer products. But that's my background.
Nice little VC halo. You're like, I only do the good stuff. I want people to eat and survive on the planet, and maybe also get an education. That's just me though.
No big deal. No judgment.
No big deal. No, it's fine.
And you moved to Berlin mid pandemic, right? You and Steven both escaped.
No. I got here a few years ago. I've been here for 3 years, so okay. I've seen Berlin in its full glory.
Okay.
I feel like you haven't seen nothing yet. You keep saying that, but like Berlin coming out of the pandemic, I feel like it's gonna be a trip.
It's true. That's true.
It's gonna be dangerous, but that's a story for a different show. Okay, Pascal, go for it.
Yeah, I'm the opposite of Neeraj. I only invest in Vice Industries and all the bad stuff. I'll keep it brief. I'm an investor at BACT, so kind of part of the broader investment team that we have here. Focus on everything from sourcing to operational support. Everything that you could imagine, kind of a junior VC doing. Prior to this, I kind of dabbled in banking and dabbled in consulting. Much happier to be on this side of kind of the industry now. And in terms of focus areas, really focus on everything, but have done quite a bit of work in kind of food tech, SME SaaS, and fintech more generally.
Boom. And rocking the Patagonia like a true VC.
100%.
You need to just lean into the long hair, Pascal. I think you can start a movement if you just stop hiding?
It makes for good conversation nowadays. Start off every conversation with a bit of a joke, a bit of self-deprecating humor, and then we ease on the way.
It goes a long way. Even if you're really an asshole, it's good to make fun of it.
That's what I'm trying to hide.
Okay, last but not least, Triin.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's Triin here, and I'm here thanks to Daisy and Pascal as well, and Vinay, because I'm part of Backby Venture community. So as are Neeraj and Nalden. So great to be here. And I actually started as a builder, a company builder. So I built 2 fintech companies. I'm actually Estonian, so this is where all the fintechs come from mainly. So, so I built 2 fintechs there, then came to London, then built another HR tech company, and then decided to go on the other side. And then I started investing at Startup Bootcamp, which is early stage accelerator, still in fintech. Then went to Founders Factory, was investor there, been investing in early stage mainly. And then I was an investor at the Venture Collective as well, which is a mission-driven and underrepresented founders investor. So I've been very keen on investing in businesses that are mission-led, that are changing the world for better. So this is probably something I got from TVC. I'm still a venture partner there. And today I'm actually a founder of C, which is a capital platform for female founders. And we help then female founders to get better access to capital and investor networks, and also support them with any educational support they need to raise their funding. Yeah, that's about me.
I feel like you guys are so impressive. Oh, awesome, all of you. Okay, cool. Well, let's get to it. So I'm going to bring Grant up. This episode is focused on pitching / fundraising, which is, some people love it, some people hate it. But I think everyone can certainly learn plenty from the 6 of you, well, from the 5 of you and your backgrounds in the sector, well, in this space, I should say. And I'm going to bring Grant on, and then we're going to work out how we're going to screen share his deck, which is going to be an interesting thing to do, given that it's the first restream we've done. He's going to go through his deck for 15 minutes with you guys. I know some of you already had a chance to go through it, but people who are watching this now or later will not have done that. And then I'd love you to just tear it apart. And don't do that. Don't do that. Shit sandwich, please. No, but help him work on that. And then we'll move the conversation more broadly to, the realities of fundraising and pitching at seed in Europe. I've written down a bunch of questions, but we'll just let the conversation go where it needs to go. Okay, so
Exciting. Let's do it.
Grant from Tranquil City, come up here with us. There you are at my 9 o'clock.
Hi everyone. Lovely to meet you all.
Hi.
Thanks for the intros.
Too.
And thanks for giving me the time to speak to you guys. Yeah, ready. Thanks, Vinay, for sorting this out.
You're more than welcome. Okay, so if I start trying to screen share, bear with me as we go into the brave new worlds of restreaming.
Yeah, I've never used this either, so let's give it a go.
Do you see the deck right now?
We do not.
You do not. Okay.
While you're figuring that out, Grant, do you want to tell us?
Yeah, you're using the link that I sent across to you. I could screen share.
Yeah, why don't you try screen sharing? Great. In the meantime, if you can multitask, you can also tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, that feels unfair.
You want to give it a go, right? I don't know. Yeah. I'm terrible at multitasking.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Can you see my screen?
I'm going to bring it up now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
He's done it.
I can't see you though, so you're gonna have to shout to tell me to shut up. Or so if I do present, you can see that, yeah?
You're nailing this.
Cool. So I'll tell you a bit about me first. So I'm Grant. I'm the CEO of Tranquil City. I'm an acoustician by trade, so I deal with sound for about 8 years. I've been doing music technology and audio and urban design for soundscapes for a number of years now. And I'll tell you a bit about how I started Tranquil City as part of the pitch. But we are a team of 3 core team, but we actually have 10 of us in total who've been working on this campaign and turned into a startup. So if it's okay, I can start pitching.
Please do.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm Grant. I'm the founder and CEO of Tranquil City. We're the organization which is curating environmental data for healthier urban living. So we're pitching to you today because we're looking for people to support and invest in our business by bringing together relevant experience to help us grow and share our passion for our mission. We're looking for 450K of investment with a 20 to 30% share of our business. We have a strong brand reputation and MVP that's ready to bring in revenue, and we're seeking investment to unlock the potential to scale worldwide and bring our product to the market in which we see it can scale rapidly. So living in a big city can be incredible. I live in London, but yet at times it can also be draining. And after 5 years of living and studying, working here, I hit what I call my sort of mental brick wall. And the build up of the pressure from work, just living in the city, keeping up with the speed, everything else that's going on, and as well as my environment, really just became too much. And I needed to take the time out to relax. And in the end, actually seeking out spaces in the city that I could experience a sense of tranquility profoundly helped me to feel well in the city again and help me cope. And I don't think these feelings are uncommon. After starting Tranquil City a number of years ago, I've heard many experiences of people feeling the same way. And there's a mental, physical, and emotional strain living in urban areas that is significant, from air pollution, noise, detachment from nature, feelings of isolation. And after going through this experience, it's made me really think, so what if cities could actually be good for our health? And Tranquil City exists because the places that we spend to choose our time in has a massive impact on our well-being. And recent research found that spending just 2 hours a week experiencing more natural environments can significantly boost our health. We believe that cities are amazing places where we can all live healthy lives, but they shouldn't make anyone feel like I did before. So we believe that environmental data has the power to help improve how cities are designed, but also how we choose to live in them. But the problem is that data on environmental quality isn't being used to its potential in the design of cities, but also to make healthy daily choices. And this is because the data is fragmented, requires experts to interpret, and is not widely scalable, universal across the world. So we've experienced this firsthand in our work as consultants, where we know the direct sources of data, but we know how fragmented they are and how hard they are to put together and understand. So the impact of that problem is that people don't have the information on their fingertips like they do with the weather, for example. But we believe that environmental quality data should be used and be as easy to understand and make actions from as, you know, putting your rain jacket on before you go outside. You should be able to know which route you should take that helps your well-being, helps you arrive at your destination feeling refreshed and good, and, you know, and promoting that healthy lifestyle in the city. So our solution is that we turn data into empowering and actionable environmental information, and we offer to integrate into apps and software as a service solutions. The idea is that we can help strategic city design through innovative smart city platforms, but we can also integrate it into apps that people use every day to promote healthy lifestyles. So we have a Tranquil City API that provides hyperlocal information on numerous environmental metrics, and also expert designed indices that help people to make healthier choices. This drives both positive behavior change towards active and sustainable lifestyles, such as walking, cycling, living and exercising in healthy environments, as well as strategic planning. So we work together to push towards the Sustainable Development Goals 11 and 3. So here's an example of how it can actually work. So our Tranquil City API can integrate into technologies in these 3 sectors that we've targeted as our sort of market fit. And in property, for example, you want to know how healthy your next neighborhood could be. With fitness, you can actually track the healthiness of your exposure to nature that can actually promote well-being. We can add in features that help encourage you to put metrics on what environment you're spending your time in and how that can actually help boost your health. And mobility as well is an obvious one, where, for example, finding a healthier route can significantly improve your mood and also reduce emissions due to the transition of modal shift from away from cars in cities and to walking and cycling, which is a huge thing that's happening in the world. So in COVID-19, the pandemic hit, and this has actually accelerated the need for such solutions as ours. And the COVID pandemic has highlighted the importance of tranquil and green urban spaces. 4 in 10 adults reported spending more time in nature than before the coronavirus pandemic, and significant emphasis has actually been placed on mental health recovery, in which, again, the spaces we choose to spend our time in has a massive impact on them. So the value proposition of our product is that users are demanding better standards and options from their apps and products. According to the McKinsey report, 50% of people wish that there were more products that supported mindful activities, and a report conducted by Enderman found that 57% of people would actually switch or boycott a product due to its social credentials. So our value proposition is that our data can allow apps and services to offer these types of solutions and features that attract more and more people as this movement is sort of growing. The market is huge. We are mainly focused on the location-based services app market, including mobility as a service, real estate, travel, health, fitness, and well-being apps. And we estimated that the service available market is 49 million. These estimates are based on expanding our products to over 250 cities worldwide. It's actually predicted that there will be 700 cities with over 1 million inhabitants by 2050 due to increasing urbanization. This was predicted by the United Nations. So we expect these numbers to be fairly conservative in the grand scheme of things. Our business model is that we are providing this API for businesses of all sizes. We target early integration with rapidly growing apps so that the next generation of major apps rely on us to deliver these services. So we have a monthly subscription model that is tiered depending on the way each customer consumes the data, and this starts at £20 per month for 2,000 calls and goes up to £230 per month for 150,000 calls. So we are also offering tailor plan for mass market customers that are already generating high user base. So our model is based on affordable fees to attract a high number of customers operating in many cities worldwide and helping people to experiment with new solutions and not just target the big players that already exist. So my co-founder and I, Ben, and I first met nearly 10 years ago working in acoustics and air quality, side-by-side teams in a big consultancy firm. We worked together since founding Tranquil City in 2016. Ben Piper, who leads our API and tech development, he brings a wealth of experience of technical development and machine learning that we use to build our products, having previously co-founded Acoustic Sensor Networks, an IoT device platform. So our strategic partner, Umesh Pandya, has also worked with us since 2019 when we were part of the Bethel Green Ventures Tech for Good Accelerator. And we're supported by a wider team of multidisciplinary experts. Some have been from the project from day one. So our competitors, and the key thing that distinguishes from our competitors is that we are targeting high resolution information and then a flexible pricing structure that doesn't exclude people who are experimenting and actually starting up new apps and services. So for example, our competitor Brisometer offers air quality data at 350 meters resolution, costing around as a starting price £5,000 per month. So we plan to offer 20-meter resolution, so much higher on air quality, green infrastructure, and our bespoke indices, the Tranquil City Index and the Healthy Streets Index at a starting price of £20, which is nothing, but compared to what they're offering for the Brisometer. Our target is that we want to get people experimenting with this data and creating new solutions that we haven't even thought of yet. So attraction, we've integrated into the walking app, UK-based, and Go Jauntly, and we're also working with Citymapper to prototype a Tranquil Walk feature. We've used our data to create clean air routes across London with a Cross River partnership, and we've also integrated our data into the electric bus fleet with Transport for London, and we're working on a project this year with them. An emerging property app will be releasing our feature with our data in mid-2021, and it uses our API to show how healthy their office locations are. We've also been awarded a pilot with Lisbon City Council as part of our successful participation in one of their programs last year, and are building relationships with another Portuguese city, Braga, and also Barcelona. We're hoping to expand to other cities in Europe and the US later this year. So our impact so far is that we're not just a data company, we actually do a lot of engagement, and we love meeting people and trying to merge that idea of data with people and making sure that people use that data as actually information so they can take action from it and make a change in their life for the better. So we've had over 2,000 posts to our organic social media campaign. We've estimated around 150,000 people have been directly engaged with our work. So through bootstrapping, we've launched our MVP for London, and we're currently developing a worldwide model that helps us rapidly expand and create new data sets for new regions and cities. We have a pipeline of target customers and business development strategy based around raising awareness of our product by engaging city authorities, planners, designers, and app developer communities. Again, our product is intended to expand worldwide, and this is a machine learning model that we're working on currently that enables us to create data in not just the countries and the cities that have enough money to pay for it, but the cities that don't necessarily have enough funding to create expertise data like this. We can help create that in a degree that helps make informed, good, positive behavior change to make that affordable for those cities and the people who are experimenting and creating apps and solutions. So again, our roadmap is basically to expand our product worldwide and reaching up to 250 cities in the next 5 years. So we're seeking £450,000 of investment, mainly to be spent on the following sort of 4 areas: team and product, customer acquisition, and obviously got some fixed costs. We are looking to sort of potentially exit in 5 years in terms of giving a return on the investment, and that could be to prop tech or urban development companies such as Sidewalk Labs, which is owned by Google, Citymap, or Rightmove. So in summary, we have a strong technical expertise and a great reputation within the sector that we're working in, and we've been working together for a number of years. We have a good brand reputation with extensive press coverage. We've identified a large market opportunity and demonstrated traction through paid projects with key market players. Our solution addresses the current importance of public health and city development in the global agenda, particularly the UN SDGs goals 11 and 3. And we've been validated and invested in by Bethlehem Green Ventures, a very well-renowned impact VC. And other investors are ready to co-invest following us securing a lead investor. Thanks again for listening, and any questions, we're very happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thanks for taking us through that.
Yeah.
I want to see you guys, so shall I stop sharing?
Please do. Yeah.
How do I do that? That works.
Awesome. Okay. So the focus here is not to evaluate Grant's business as a viable investment, because that's not what this concept is about, although we can do that as well if we feel like, but let's do that at a later stage. What it's really about is about the pitch, the fundraising process, how Grant has approached it, how his deck is working, how his pitch works, whether the key points are landing, how you as investors feel and react to it. And I think let's just start riffing on that. Daisy, you're always a fascinating person to listen to, so I'm just going to get you to get things started. But by all means,
that's the most polite way of saying that I talk too much. But I'm happy to kick off. I thought, overall, really strong pitch. There were 2 things that stood out to me, though. I think one, with plays like this, where for some investors or for some people who are less familiar with thinking about this as a real problem, it can be really helpful, I think, to lead off with the market pull rather than necessarily like how you've come to it. Because that's one thing, and that just says that you've had a problem, had a solution. Whereas I think it'd be really interesting to understand people who are looking to rent properties or to buy properties are desperate for this information, and people who are sort of really conscious of the health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then so that contextualizes the fact that the companies building solutions for them are also super keen. And so it's less I think this is a nice idea and a nice to have, which is sometimes where sort of impact businesses get pigeonholed. And then the other thing as well, I don't know, people can disagree with me on this one, because I've seen in a number of pitches, which leads me to believe that clearly someone is asking for it. But I don't know that I like when I'm told by a founder, oh, we're going to exit in 3 or 5 years. And I'm sort of like, why do you know that specifically? And because that also just tells me that the ambition is capped. And I think that's something really interesting about, we're starting something here. We already know that we'll build a pretty large business from this, but there's also good chances as we go and as we grow and we understand more, there's just a wealth of opportunities. And I want to take this all the way. This is the thing that I want to do with the next, 10, 12 years of my life. So those are the sort of top ones, and then I'll pass the con.
Yeah, let's mix it around. I think it would be great.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
Nalden, I heard you agreeing with Daisy there.
Like never talk about it. Actually, it's like you're investing in someone who's selling hours. That shouldn't, like, that's a red flag for an investor, I guess. Like,
okay, good flag there. Cool.
You wanna get people in on your vision and basically competing with Foursquare, right? So
Yeah.
That's the big thing. That's, I think, quite exciting. So you want people to get on board with that exciting journey.
Yeah.
And it's about like quantifying how exciting the journey is, in my opinion.
Even if the investors might be thinking about the exit, that's for them to try and process, right? It's not for you as the founder telling the story, pitching. Is that what you guys, is that fair? I guess probably why Grant put it in there, right?
Yeah, we just had some feedback a couple of weeks ago saying that thing. So they'll be thinking about ROIs, and we're like, well, we never really thought about that.
Rubbish feedback.
And okay, thank you.
Just to add nuance to it from my side, broadly very much aligned with Daisy and Nalden, and agree with their feedback. But I think, I guess different investors, think slightly differently about these things. I think investors like Backed and many of our kind of ilk, so traditional seed investors, we're going to be looking for for people that are building companies for 10 years and beyond. And I think the really simple thesis behind that is, you will always kind of continually add value to your business over time. And if you think about like aligning incentives between founders, but then also investors, we want to kind of maximize the return in kind of a very blunt way, that a business brings to us as a fund. But we'd also want you to do that as a founder, right? I think, for founders, there's typically much more than kind of the economic incentive, but an economic incentive typically is a driver when you're, pursuing something which is so hard as, founding a startup. And I think Neeraj and Nalden can attest to that. So maybe that's a bit of nuance there. There are other archetypes of investors that will kind of, try and dig into the financials. But I think, agree with Nalden and Daisy, go big and don't let anybody pigeonhole you in terms of like, when you're going to exit, where you're going to exit.
It might be different if you're looking for just angel investment, though, right? Because as in if there's a type of company where you're like, I'm getting business angel money, I don't plan necessarily raise like institutional capital and keep scaling. This is supposed to be a medium-sized business that does pretty well, does what it needs to do, and then is sold on. Maybe that's a different context, so perhaps there's something in there about the kind of.
I think it's a bad fit. Personally, I'm like, if an investor is asking you, hey, when am I going to get a return in 5 years? It's a terrible investor to work with, because your long-term incentives are not aligned, and they're already playing their cards that they're going to be a pain in the ass, and they're going to try to get you to do a bunch of short-term shit that is not good for you. And you should just like hang up basically and talk to investors who believe in your mission long-term, because investor business alignment is the most important thing you can do at this stage. So many businesses are killed by having their own assholes.
Yeah. I think the other.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that's what we've been preparing for this sort of like last year, and we're like going back and forth about that, because we do want to be doing this for as long as possible. We're basically doing stuff that we believe is what we think is going to have a positive impact, and we don't want to necessarily sell. We had that question, like, we'll think about it, but we were asked that, sort of put it in there as a sort of a thing to maybe get them thinking. But then maybe it's the way that I phrased it that said, well, actually put it directly in there, and not just had it as if they asked me a question, I said, well, we could potentially look at that if that down the line, but it's not something we're planning. But
I think what would actually help you with this particular deck that you ran through is maybe put in what your kind of success looks like in the 5 years. That would maybe remove this question of what my return looks like. Like you can put in some numbers of what the return would look like, in 3 years, what your revenues would look like in 3 to 5 years, so that, they get an estimation. Because I think why this question might come up, it's really hard to predict what your commercial model will look like based on the deck, because there was not much detail about the pricing and what the success in this pricing looks like and how long these customers will be using it and this kind of questions, right? So maybe if you can put something in the deck that will clarify it, then actually you don't have to talk about the exit, and they have a better understanding of what the success looks like.
Yeah, and I think linked to that as well, because you have a business that has sort of like lots of archetypal customers, I think it's also important that it's clear that I'm not confused about what my application of the technology is. This is intentional. And also I think I like what you've done with there's mobility and there's this version, but there's so many different types of companies you put there, and it's not super clear to me what does that look like in practice in terms of that contract value, or how you estimate that they would use this. And I think for someone to be able to walk away with, oh, they already have one version of each of these is worth X or so, or whatever or so, and then they estimate. So when you put there that in the next 18 months you expect that you're getting to, I think you said 200 KRR, I think it's the breakdown and the gap between where you are now and where that is. And I think, yeah, that will be really, really, really helpful. And I think, again, answering the ROI question without necessarily having to like cap yourself off it, we will sell this company in 5 years, so you don't have to worry.
Just to follow up on that, like in terms of you said about the pricing, would you find that that's helpful to put in there? Because we, to put that in the business model, the pricing structure, the tiers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would want to see that. So I would ask this question anyway.
Yeah, I think we would as well. And look, I think not to, as in, damn the industry, but I do think your work is cut out a bit for you being like an impact business, because there is, I think, still a little bit of a question of, is this a real business, or is it like a good thing that should exist, but I'm not really sure it's going to be commercially sound. And so it's almost as though you have to actively disprove that, I think, to some degree. And in this case, this is clearly something that happens to have really wonderful social impact, but also is just a super viable business model and commercially sound. So I think you should front load that.
So focus on the numbers to disprove that an impact startup can actually make
money. Answer the question that's like in the back of their head, being like, is this? It's super nice. I wouldn't mind it if it existed, but is this a good investment? Like,
absolutely.
You have to answer it.
And I think, very practically, where it might make sense to speak about, contract values pricing is kind of very close to your market sizing point. So, the market sizing piece, you kind of have various archetypes of customers. I think what it would be nice to get a feel for is, what is a, social sport application like Strava, that is part of a broader archetype. What do they pay for this? And then I think that links to another point in the deck, which I'd love to talk about, which is kind of B2B ROI, maybe slightly separate to Daisy. What you were saying, I think you were touching on kind of B2C ROI. There's also, I guess, the B2B ROI, and this is almost like a B2B to C play in a sense in terms of who's actually benefiting from this, not from a commercial perspective, of course, but from a benefit perspective. So I'd hook that right into the market piece, and then just touching on the second point in terms of the ROI discussion. One more generally. Why is data like this valuable? But then two, specifically for businesses like Strava, what is the ROI that this drives to them? Can they, better engage consumers? Does this actually benefit them from an acquisition perspective? Things like that would be super helpful, because I think, again, kind of closing the loop on pricing, one thing that I always think about is like, willingness to pay is a function of the ROI that this brings a business. So kind of getting a view of that loop more generally would be super helpful.
Yeah, that's great.
And I have actually another point on data, because eventually you're a data company, right? So because you had a slide there more in the end that talked a little bit about how you're using worldwide data to go worldwide, right? But my question would be, like, I think in the beginning it would be great if you talk somewhere about the defensibility, or what is so special. How do you get this data? Like, no one else has this data. Is it actually true that no one else has this data? Is it proprietary data that you get access to somehow? Or is it open source data and you just pull it together and then that's... I think that's one question that I would do maybe as a follow-up question, but if it would be somehow brought out in the deck on the tech side, then it would be quite impactful.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
To add to that, sorry, what is healthy?
Ever the philosopher.
But that's super important. We've had this, so we actually bring in experts to help define that, because we actually we are experts and we consult with experts to help create our own IP on what is defined as healthy. So we've created what we call the Tranquil City Index, and we've also created one called the Healthy Streets Index. The Tranquil City Index is one that is looking at restorative spaces that are good for well-being, and that's based on empirical evidence from our environmental psychologist that looks at what is important for a space of an urban environment to be good for restoration and mental health. And then that's basically like noise reduction, air pollution, it could be exposure to nature, amount of trees, what was the quality of that? And we put them all together and we make an index out of that. The Healthy Streets one is actually by a leader in walkability and who's been working with TfL for a number of years. And she's actually put the Healthy Streets approach, which TfL has implemented in London. So we've put these together using experts. And this is in contrast to some of the other sort of maybe competitors, is that we are coming from a consultant and expert world, but we believe that if you're using that knowledge, you can put it into a scalable thing, which is essentially what we're trying to do. And we probably should, maybe what you're trying to say is maybe we need to have that more technical slide in there, which we had, but when we pitched it, some people were like, oh, I don't get it, because it's hard to visualize on a slide. Maybe we just need a picture of the data and say, this is what it is, and me tell you what I just did.
I think building on that, and this might take, this might be a little bit out of left field, but one of the things I thought, the business is called Tranquil City, but when I look at the deck, I don't feel tranquility at all. I feel like data, SaaS, like complication, and I think it's this like general ethos of like, I don't know, I don't feel calm. And I didn't really feel like I understood health. I didn't really understand, personally, I didn't understand like the impact. I didn't get the ethos of the business by feeling.
Yeah, I think this is one of those difficult ones. Like we've actually, as part of like our post-investment support, been trying to get like an in-house like deck support person, because I think there are some narratives that just are complex by definition. And then when you marry that with the fact that just, for better or worse, it is off-putting to see like a lot of information and structured in a way. Like also, we've all been caught in that one, conditioned to a particular kind of deck. It's like clean and it's streamlined. And then when you see anything else from that, you're like, oh, I don't think they know, which is so unfair. And there is like a kickback reaction. So I do think it is worth investing in like collaborating with someone like who does deck. And increasingly, there are like quite a number of these freelancers, and just sit there and say, if you had to try and imagine like, or try and communicate the concept of healthiness as an index that could then be applied to a SaaS business, what do you got for me in terms of logos and arrangement? And then I think that can really make a difference.
Absolutely, that's great.
Communicate.
All right, I'm gonna, unless anyone has anything else they want to say, I'm gonna wrap things up there to Grant, and then we're gonna carry on the conversation. Talk about fundraising and pitching more broadly and kind of leaning on your expertise, guys. But any closing words, any helpful last tips? Anyone want to redesign his deck? Looking at you.
I don't want to redesign deck because that sounds like a massive amount of work. But I can suggest people do that. But what I was going to say, and sort of slightly separate to your deck, I like this idea of sort of making your API available to like new developers, so that a whole like generation of apps are built. With you guys, the baseline. What I'd really recommend is thinking about your community strategy, because that's made the difference for any of the companies that have tried to do this. The ones that have worked versus not worked is, how do you build a community around those developers? Because the sorts of people who want to apply that probably care about this as a subject. Is it content? Is there like a forum? Like, is it just events? But what is the thing that sort of helps you do that, rather than just it's available? Because that might not be quite enough. But I do think that will be a huge amount of defensibility for you guys long term, so it's worth thinking about from the outside.
That's great, yeah. Thank you.
And one tiny detail, I was just curious, like what happened between 2016 and 2020?
Yeah, so we did 2 grant-funded applications. So we started as a project to explore tranquility in the city. So we had 2 EU grant funds, which we did projects. And that was how we started the startup. So it came out of the back of 2 grant fund experiments. And then in 2018, we did lots of public engagement, and then we did the accelerator in 2019, and then 2020 is when shit hit the fan.
Okay. Might we say that you started in 2018 then, and then the rest was part of your journey? Maybe.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah, the journey before that, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise there's the momentum question. What has been happening? Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Grant.
Really helpful. Lovely to meet you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank you very much. Okay, and just last thing on the deck thing, Suhrcke recommended Slide Bean. So if you are looking for deck support or redesigning decks, Slide bean is a good one.
Like the insect with the flowers and whatnot.
Slide bean, bean like the pulse, and slide like going down a slide. I mean, one thing I want to touch on.
Why did you say bean like the food? Why did you say bean like the pulse?
I don't know. That's just where my brain went. Should I just leave now? Was that too weird? I mean, one thing that came to mind as Grant was pitching, I think that's pretty common, and it's something I see, and I see a lot more coming from a communication / advertising background, is I think often a deck is about information architecture, right? It's about giving as little as possible to create the most compelling narrative that builds one to the other, such that you get after 10 to 15 slides to a place which is kind of unarguably interesting. But one thing that I often think is missing is like founders thinking about what is the one slide, or what is the one stat, or what is the one statement, or what is the one piece of information that I need to get someone's attention on and like keep them there for a second. Like that jaw-dropping thing, which is like, holy fuck, this is actually pretty big. This actually makes a lot of sense. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, totally. And a good way of practicing that is just use Twitter, and you know, try to create a Twitter thread basically that is your deck. And
yeah, that's true. Forces you to be succinct.
That's the best practice. See how that resonates.
Interesting one. I quite like that. I think the way that I think about it sometimes is it must be really hard if you started with something, you've gone all the way, especially in a super long journey of like you've lived the problem and then whatever. There's so much information in your head that I imagine it must be incredibly difficult to distill that. What I find, or what I imagine might be helpful, and maybe I'm wrong at this, I haven't had to build any decks for any companies, is to like work backwards from the, especially if it's for VCs, obviously if it's something else different, but it's for VCs, the people who want to pay for this thing, and why are they so desperate to do so? Like, why is there some acute pain in the side of their spleen or whatever as a result of not having the thing that you're proposing? And then I think it becomes much easier then to have that statement and that sentence or whatever that opening is, because it's like, you know, this is the gap and then this is the solution. And I think sort of forcing that question is a helpful one, and probably also talking to people who like fit within that archetype, like talk to you, like your would-be customers, and what's the sentence they say, what's the thing that the conversation ultimately boils down to, and then starting from there rather than the entire story, because that is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this earlier today, Daisy, which is bringing the problem to life in a very human way, right? Because ultimately, all businesses are created by humans trying to solve human problems. And if you have a complex business, or one that a lot of people aren't familiar with, then humanizing that problem is like, you're right, it's a great place to start, because then I'm drawn in. I'm like, I get this problem. I get why it's a real problem, and I get why people are willing to pay for a solution to this. Or like,
yeah, and cynically, I get why the person who ultimately is going to be the one who pays for this is already sort of waiting with their hands in their pockets for you to come along.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I had some questions which I wanted to ask you guys. The first one was just around the realities of fundraising. Almost like if we imagine a founder fundraising as a funnel, like what is a realistic time frame? What is a realistic amount of no's? How many decks do you guys see per week? Like how long do you actually spend looking at decks? Like just give them the no bullshit truth. Like what actually goes on as a busy and highly in demand investor, so founders can just have a little more reality around like what that looks like. Neeraj, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, and it's so contextual. It's hard to give a single answer.
We're about to find out that Neeraj doesn't do that much work, actually.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably look at like 10 or 15 a week, something like that. I spend a couple minutes on each one, and just because I think to Nalden's point, I think each slide basically boils down to a sentence, and effectively you're reading 15 sentences, and you get the story, and either you're interested or you're not. In terms of timeline, it could be anywhere from a week to months, and it's all a product of how much momentum you can generate. And that's it. That's like the secret of fundraising is just you need to be able to jumpstart momentum. And there's different ways to do it, and some people are really good at it. It's like a discrete skill that I think founders need to learn. It's like learning sales or marketing or whatever. I think fundraising is its own thing. And it's hype generation. And if you get good at it, you can have a very fast and streamlined fundraise. And it takes time and practice and thought to master. And then if you're not one of those, then it can take months and months and months and be never ending. So it's hard to really distill it.
Yeah, I think to that specific point, like one tip that sometimes just does make the difference is like find someone that is known to the angel or the fund that you're talking to that for some reason would speak highly of you or is willing to, or like coerce them. I don't know. But there is like one of the quickest deals we've done in a space that previously we weren't all that comfortable with. I think a big part of why we moved so quickly was that 5 separate people messaged us to be like, this founder is amazing, by the way. And we were like, okay, we should probably prioritize this. Where in otherwise we would have been like, this market, we're not so sure. Like we have a bunch of other meetings, we'll talk to them eventually. And that's the kind of thing that can just mean you move so slowly that your lack of movement on it in your brain substitutes for lack of interest, and then you just drop it. So get it. People for you.
And I think to boil that down, I think the reason is simply, there's so much noise, and to kind of make venture scalable. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to look for signal amidst the noise. It's just it just makes sense to do so.
I want to put some context that noise, Pascal. I know you basically eat decks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on average, instinctively, how many are you looking at a week?
Yeah,
This is not at all a slight. I think it's probably truly for a founder to understand that, okay, these guys actually, there's a scale here, and my deck has a 5-minute chance. Everything from the subject line, if it's a cold email, to the opening slide, every single interaction is a point where someone might drop off or choose next. It is that brutal. And that's just reality. But yeah, sorry, Pascal.
No, 100% right. And I think
like Tinder, Vinay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there should be a Tinder for VC deal.
No, I know. It would just be like more resources in the industry. Like I don't think it's Tinder. I think it's just more Pascals, so that
more Pascals. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to reproduce as fast as possible, or replicate. That might be the better word. More consensual one, at least. Yeah. So how many? I mean, how many do we look at? And I guess what is the biggest restraint? I think, or constraint. Sorry, and I think that's the biggest question. Daisy, you nailed it. It really is resource, right? Neeraj, I think you're kind of a single investor. There's only one Neeraj. We're lucky to have kind of a couple of investors on the team, but there are only 3 kind of dedicated investors. 4 with Daisy, who kind of leads a lot of our community efforts and is tied up very much doing those. And as a result, we can only process so much. And as a result, we look for signals in the noise, as I said before. I guess 2 things to speak about. We look at a number of different channels and basically try and triage those. So we really kind of have a relatively clean funnel. We try and look at our kind of, inbound when possible. We don't always get to it. We have our network. That's another kind of active channel. Again, it's pretty easy to get signal from that channel, which is helpful for us as investors. We have our community as a channel, which kind of is an extension of our network. And then we kind of look outbound as well. Sometimes we're excited by different themes, excited by different theses. And we try and kind of, look outbound to see what people are building in the market. So it's really kind of a mixture of different channels. Different funds overweight different funnels. We always adjust that on kind of a quarterly basis, depending on what's higher ROI. And then in terms of kind of what we look at in terms of kind of pure numbers, for some
45
more
based on our
sorry.
Well, I'm the only one to do those stupid reports, and on average, it's between 31 and 45.
There's the answer. There's the magic number. But we of course look through. We look through more when it comes to kind of like cold inbound, kind of going through many. As potentially Nalden said before, you're kind of spending 30, 60 seconds on each deck, and you're kind of looking at like what piques your interest. When something is a qualified referral, you just spend more time on it. Somebody believes in this business, there must be something there. You spend a couple of minutes on it, and you dig a bit deeper. So time spent really varies by channel and varies by investor. But yeah, as Daisy said, factually, I look at between 30 to 45 decks a week.
So the best thing a founder can do is try to move into a channel that they instinctively know is a higher quality signal for an investor.
Yeah, and look, I think this is a really tough discussion to have, because I think that in itself is prone to bias, right? Some people have privileged access by virtue of their upbringing, by virtue of networks. Some others don't. But then on the other hand, if you look at kind of the job of an investor and you look at it in like really theoretic or like really like a mechanical sense, you're looking to like the highest ROI channels, because you're looking to see kind of the best quote unquote deal, and that's tough to define. And finding and kind of sourcing that best deal in amidst kind of a lot of noise and amidst kind of significant resource restraints. So those are kind of the two dynamics that clash, and as a result, yeah, oftentimes best to move up the funnel to kind of a higher signal point.
Okay, I'm going to change questions now. I'm going to go to what I want to know is how to turn a no into something more useful for you as a founder, right? Because sometimes a no is the end of a conversation, but there are probably ways to turn a no into something more valuable for you as you're in this kind of mindset of trying to raise money from the right people, trying to find believers, trying to find like converts on your mission. Triin, I'd love you to kind of, if something comes to mind, others we can move someone else.
Yeah,
Like,
happy to jump in here because, funnily enough, we had just a female founder today saying, or it was yesterday, saying, I spoke to about 150 or 200 funds and I didn't get any decent replies why they passed, except saying it's too early or something like that. So I think it's really important, and this is a problem in the industry. No one has time. There is a constraint on resources, so there isn't also enough time to write, longer email about, what you should do. But I think as a founder, what would be really helpful if you go and try to get, if it's really early, then what are the milestones you need to reach to actually come back and have this conversation again? Or, what does this too early mean, right? And I think when you go and ask feedback, don't just say like, oh, can you give me some feedback or why did you pass? But maybe go back with some more detailed questions. Oh, is there anything specific? What would change your mind in a few months' time? Or what are the details? What are the metrics I need to get to, or something like this, so that you actually kind of guide the conversation already to something more detailed. Because feedback essentially is everything, and you can at least improve on that, and then go back in a 6 months' time to different metrics, right?
Yeah, and I think the other piece of that as well is like just asking for intros to other investors. At worst, they say no, but there's something about like forcing that forward and like getting in, especially if you are a founder who has less access in general, and so like make sure that you parlay any one particular investor meeting into a possible 2 or 3 more and multiply in that sense. And it can be something you can ask generally, but I think something even more powerful is go and find that person on LinkedIn who they're connected to, if it happens to be any funds that you also find a line and be like, would you mind, or are you in a position to make X or Y intro? And the thing is, like, at the end of the day,
that is a pro tip from Daisy.
There you go. Busy or not, I think we're all human, at least, well, some of us. I don't know about people in Silicon Valley, but we are. And so it still feels really shitty when you have to say no to someone and you know that they put, everything into this business, and like, I'm probably never going to do that because that seems like a hellish way to live. And so if I can do like a small thing that makes me feel a bit better as a result of passing, I'm probably likely to. If you make it extra easy by literally saying this person I want an intro to, then I'll almost certainly do it. So I think that's an opportunity as well to milk a little bit something out of, if it's like a pass.
What you and Triin both said there, I think, is super interesting. That like, make it easy for the person to help you, right? Don't be lazy in your ask. Make it specific. Make it take less than 3 minutes, less than 60 seconds. If they can do it in 3 clicks, you're probably in a good place. But make it very tangible and easy for them. So a single question on which you want feedback, or a single person which you want an intro to, because it's much more likely to happen than some vague question.
But I think also for a founder, you should do the research up front. Like, you can online find every VC, both persons as the portfolios. You can basically, everything is online nowadays. The blogs they write, like the newsletters they share, like everything is online. So you have to do the research before you even approach someone. And I think that's already like the start for a founder, because it's like dating. So back to Tinder, I guess, but it's it's finding a great match, especially when you're early. You want to have someone who's backing you from day one, so to speak. So it doesn't make sense to talk to VCs who say it early, but really don't, which is all accessible later. So you can already filter a lot as a founder.
Yeah.
I think. Go on.
Now, the other thing I would mention is it's really important if you've kind of been passed after a few stages. Let's say you had 2-3 meetings, you maybe even got to the IC, you developed a really good relationship with an associate or principal or partner, whoever that was who led the deal. I think it's really good if you manage to maintain this relationship going forward, because one thing is getting a no from a fund, but totally other thing is, maybe this particular person who was sponsoring you was actually a really big fan of you, but maybe it's not a fit for the fund thesis, or maybe there's something else. So I think try to develop a very close relationship with this person who led the deal. And as Daisy said, I'm sure they're very open to recommend you to funds. And maybe in the future, you have a better opportunity to go back and raise from them again.
Totally agree. And I think I even had that VCs did connect me with angels who then decided to participate. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Yeah, I think that last point is a really good one. And Nalden, Neeraj, would love to hear whether you guys leveraged that when you were building and raising for your own startups. But typically I find it works really well to find an angel or a handful of angels who are true supporters. And if they back you, they'll make relevant introductions, and that gives you that signal that you need, and gets you in front of the right people. Those that, to Nalden's point, could be a really good fit for you.
Yeah, I think it's good that we're getting more infrastructure in general in the ecosystem that makes finding angels, engaging with angels much easier, because for so long, I literally worked in this industry and I was like, where are angels? When we started community, which is ridiculous. But I think what Landscape is trying to do, what, various lists here and there in that Airtable that was floating around for a while, is at least promising that there is more sourcing infrastructure for
Yeah, you have more and more angels who organize themselves now, in the Netherlands, there's an operator exchange, and I think every country has a version of sharing deal flow.
I think it's awesome. And then, the small thing that I think is worth doing on the side, I think a lot of founders are super hesitant about getting in administrative help or having an EA, or I'm heads down, I'm lean, it'd be super bougie. Just get one while you, it's you take on a second job on top of your other already ridiculous job. And it's really worth whatever administrative support you can pull in. If that's not an EA, then maybe some sort of outsourcing operational company, but just that frees up your time. Because I'm aware that as we're saying all this stuff, there's someone who is screaming into their pillar or something, I'm already so busy and now I should go do all this research and then follow up on LinkedIn to see who they know and then beg for an intro and then ask for feedback and build relationships long term. And that can all feel insane on top of everything else already going. And that is true. And I think there are inefficiencies in this industry that will improve. But in the meantime, just get as much help as you can and don't underestimate the fact that it is a second full-time job on top of your other full-time job.
Neeraj, you got anything to say that you want to add to this particular part of the conversation?
No, I agree with all of this stuff. I think that I've found that ultimately it's a numbers game, but it is better to do your homework and talk to fewer people than just doing blanket stuff is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with everything they said.
Yeah. And all of that research is not going to waste, right? That is there's value in that if you store it and organize it in a way that might be useful to you later down the line.
Actually, one other thing, just to build on what Triin was saying, I totally agree with what she was saying, that this is a long-term game, and I would look at all of these things through a lens of 20 years, not through a lens of 3 weeks. When you're fundraising,
very good advice.
Your people are going to pass on you now, but they can invest in your next thing, and maybe things change dramatically, and relationships always have a really long view of it as opposed to a short view.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what it also helps you to is, you get through to these people much faster when you keep in touch with them and have built this relationship. You don't have to go through the same process again, right? You have to do the pitch again and go through the IC again, but it's not a new connection. They've known you, they've followed you. So it just really simplifies your next fundraising process.
Yeah. It is really a relationship. Nalden was right.
It is.
This is just one fucking cottage industry of mates. It is. There was ups and downs to that, but I think the more that is acknowledged, the easier a time everybody has wading through it.
But it's so easy to forget that, particularly as things are remote or things become more technological or businesses themselves become more abstracted from the human use cases. It's really easy to forget that ultimately you're building a relationship, and the VCs you choose or you end up working with need to suit your business, suit your personality, suit your vision, but also that every time you're interacting with someone, you are actually building a relationship. So do your homework and think about, is this even the type of person I would like to have a relationship with down the line? What do I know about them so far? How could they assist me in my journey? And that's all homework. And store that somewhere useful so you can use it again, or share the love with other founders when the time comes. Okay, cool. So I briefly wanted to ask you guys a little bit about tech stack as well. If there's any tools or lists or things that you think can jumpstart someone in this, or things that you think are game changers or were game changers when you were fundraising, or and they might not be. This might be a shitty question, in which case you can tell me that. We can move on. But is there something that is there like something that you think will make a meaningful difference to someone who is
Loom.
Loom?
Yeah.
Totally. Like,
tell us about that.
I mean, a deck is to get the conversation, or it used to be the meeting, but ideally, especially now, like, you want to show what's the product, what are you building, who are you building with. Like, Loom is perfect for that.
Love that. Yeah. Don't just send your deck. Send a Loom video of you charismatically, persuasively, just going through your deck and prosecuting your vision.
Whether you're showing Figma or GitHub, I don't know, like whatever. Like show it. Just that and tell through. Like it's not like, I see it as an add-on to a deck. Like when you have the attention, you can capture it with Loom, and instead of a data room. Sometimes you get.
I like that.
Yeah, and the likelihood of them turning it off is also a lot less. Like if they're on their own and they're clicking through, probably gonna but once the video starts, there's a lot more friction to ending a video, right? Like Netflix is auto binge.
I guess you can speed it up. I think the other piece I'd say is, in terms of a CRM, it doesn't really matter what you use. You don't really have to use it, but just have something. Like, even if it's a pen and paper, there's just somewhere where there is a record of who you're talking to and where it is, because it's a process like anything. And I think because I am like anal retentive, I just assumed everybody did this, and now I keep meeting founders who don't, and they're like, oh, it's in my inbox. Like, that is horrifying. Having somewhere, because it also means you can be like, oh, I haven't heard from that person, I'm gonna go chase until I hear something. Like, everybody is time poor, especially in this industry. We're under-resourced and trying to bite off more than we can chew. Half the time your lack of response is not just that they're an asshole. Maybe I am, but it's probably not that. It's probably more likely that just it's fallen through the cracks, like all the other things there, whereas I see it again, that I'm like, I will respond. Like, there's a company we're looking at now that I dropped the ball for 3 months, and then he pestered, and then he pestered again, and I was like, I should really look at this. And so if you are keeping track, it's more likely that you can go and chase up and close out everything, rather than have anything just fall through because it just does, and neither of you is sort of tracking it.
Which is a free template on Notion.
Yes.
Yeah, actually with Notion, I saw one founder did a really impressive data room in Notion, and they were pre-seed, but the pre-seed founder hasn't launched the product yet and needs to show how much market research they've done, what the customer cohort surveys look like, what the customer feedback is. Having all of that in one place and very well organized, so that don't have to go and flip between Google Drive, like different folders, and go back and forth. I actually really loved how this was played out in Notion. And if you can build a solid data room in Notion, make it very well organized, I think that's impressive. And you don't have to open this up on the first meeting, right? But once these meetings progress and they, VCs ask you more information, I think that is very important to show that you're organized and have this data in one place in a digestible way.
All right, cool. So for the last couple of minutes, let's talk about red flags.
Exit.
So yeah, we
in 5 years and 14 days and 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, that would be compelling. Like, wow, that's very specific. Where are we going, Ben? Is it already in your calendar, in your G calendar? Oh, it's exit day. Okay, here we go. Bye.
Yeah.
Red flags, things that you see in the immediate turnoffs, or things that you see in they're fucking boring, or just help people understand what are the things they cannot get wrong in their decks.
Word salad.
Help them through. Yeah.
Word salad, long and wordy word salad of like 17 buzzwords, and I leave like 3 pages in and I still have no idea what it is, what it's for, and what it does. I think that one in general, regardless of the design, is always off-putting, because I used to always sort of conflate that with also poor design. But I've seen a beautiful deck and then just so many words, none of which seems to be actually explanatory. So I think that would be the biggest thing, is give it to your mom. And if your mom, specifically if she's in a different industry, if she's a cool mom who does whatever you do specifically, don't give it to her, but give it to like my mom. And if she gets it immediately, then your deck is ready. And if she doesn't, then your deck isn't ready. And then the other part is just bad design and like Microsoft Paint graphics, which it isn't fair. It should just be about the information, and yet it's not, because people are people. And if I look at something that seems now unaesthetic because it contrasts or clashes with all the other things that seem aesthetic because they correlated with companies that did well, then I'm going to think this isn't very good. So I think just good design is worth investing in, like Pitch and so many other like deck creating, presentation creating companies now just have really good templates. So just use them.
Yeah. On the word salad thing, I remember from my advertising days that a guy called John Hegarty, so John Hegarty started a very big agency called BBH, and his thing was 7 words. That is the length of an ad headline, no more than 7 words. And he was super disciplined about it. And his anecdote was, no, that was it. 7 words is it. The anecdote was about
going to be a really filthy anecdote. It was going to be.
The anecdote was about something else. The anecdote is actually about one message at a time. It's about one message at a time. So you imagine a poster. This is going back into kind of comms. If you have 10 messages on a page, I'm going to have no fucking clue which one is most important and what I'm learning about. And the story goes, the client wanted a whole bunch of messages on this bus poster, and then Hegarty gets frustrated, and there's a bunch of tennis balls in the room, and he throws like 6 tennis balls at the client at the same time, and he can't catch any of them. They're like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I just threw 6 things at you at once, and now that you got none of them, if I threw one of them, you'd get it. And it was a lightning moment. I don't know if it was Hegarty, but I can say that one.
That feels like one of those made-up anecdotes that just it works. So everyone's like, we're going to agree to believe it. That definitely happened.
Okay, so more red flags. No exit dates. No word salads. No shit designs. No 6 tennis balls.
Yeah, I would say if you're early, then and there's no engineer in your founding team, that could be a problem if you're building software. That's kind of.
Sounds almost.
I know that's not even a deck problem. That's just been happening.
So,
it is also a deck problem because you can't see it on a deck, right?
Fake an engineer. If you get to the first meeting, hire someone by then. But Avatar is an engineer. We promise somewhere.
I'm no coding it.
Okay.
But
I think if you haven't talked to 10 or 20 or 30 customers yet, I don't think you're ready to even put a deck together. You probably don't understand the problem.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I don't know what you guys think about it, but in accelerators where I've been before, they've always told the companies, put a slide in showing one curve that is going up. It doesn't matter what the curve is. Is it website traffic, social media? Is it, I don't know, subscriptions, waitlist, whatever it is. Put one curve in that is going up. It's just something needs to go up.
You got to be in the top right of that quadrant.
This is actually really interesting because, I think this is one of those things where it's terrible advice. Yeah, because everyone now does it. I think not doing it feels really weird.
Yeah,
I think that's part of what was missing in
when there isn't this one table with a curve. It's like, what is a curve?
It does nothing, but its absence feels notable.
It's pattern recognition, right? It is. It's like these are some of the cues of how I filter whether something's successful.
That's what we call a forecast revenue curve nowadays. So many pre-rev businesses with these beautiful forecast revenue curves that go to multiple triple-digit millions in 3 to 4 years' time.
Wonderful things are happening in 3 to 4 years' time for everyone. I think another one is maybe this again. I'm always having people to disagree because I think so much of this is subjective. But I do find it really off-putting when there's no competitor slide at all. Because I'm like, I don't think nobody is doing this, and I feel like it's weird that you didn't mention that anybody's doing this. But maybe there's also a good reason, or if you feel like you have a number of them, it might not feel like the most important one. But its absence always strikes me the wrong way. I don't think I would quite upgrade it to red flag, but then I'm like, well, why didn't you highlight that they are there and how you differentiate from them? What are you hiding? And why do I have to go now Google it to find out?
Yeah, and I think now you can use all these tools to kind of curate the story, right? But I still sometimes see decks where things are jumping around. So things that should have been somewhere in the beginning or in the middle, and then they jump back to the story that was in the beginning. So it really is confusing to follow these decks. So I think like, let someone just review this deck or a couple of people to make sure the story flows. And we ourselves made this mistake a few times. And I think it was really helpful when we were given feedback. Look, I'm used to see this in that flow, and this is how you should do it.
There's probably a wider thing in there of just like, don't reinvent the wheel. I think maybe before I worked in this industry, I probably would have just been like, I need to make a deck and just start it from scratch. But don't do that. Just go take any of the million templates and follow that pattern, because that's what's now, expected.
I really hate when I see like 5-year P&L projections in a deck in that super early stage business. I think it's like a waste of time, and it's completely made up.
Just put your hockey stick.
You got to remember there's an exit just then as well. Grant, don't take it personally. We're just having fun. But yeah, there's
Yeah, we love you.
I think the point, Neeraj, you made just before, I think is a really important one, which was around not only speaking to customers, but also making sure that's coming through in the storytelling. Like you part of your job at this stage is to let the VC know that you know these people better than anyone else does. And the fact that you're talking with them, you're connected with them, is probably what's going to get you to outsmart your competitors, to get this to be a business that actually meets their needs and to really go through that scale. So not only talking to them, but letting them somehow know you've done that. And Daisy, that was one of the points you brought up at the beginning of Tranquil City, was I want to see how this is a real need for the end user, whoever they are, and like bring it to life, that you kind of have validated that, or you understand that, and you have conviction in that being true. I think that's a really good one to lay with.
What I would say to that is, it's not so much a red flag, but it's more something that people should do more. I see it so rarely, right? People think, we don't have a product in market, we don't want to kind of put too much there in terms of metrics, but show us the work that you've done. Tell us that you've spoken to 70 to 100 people. Like, tell us what those people thought, because at the end of the day, we're never going to know the industry, the client, and their needs specifically as well as you. So the sooner you can convince us that this is a real need for this specific person, the better.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Don't make it a Christopher Nolan movie.
Or do, but do.
Actually, I feel like that's the quote. That's the quote. We can all go home. That's it. Just don't make any tenants. Just
exactly.
Tell us what's happening, super clear, in a linear fashion.
That's true.
No time.
I want to see Christopher Nolan doing a Loom video. That's what I want to see next.
I don't think we want that. No? I don't think that's what we need.
All right. Cool. Let's end it on time. Thank you all for joining. Nalden, Triin, Neeraj, Daisy, Pascal. Thank you to Grant from Tranquil City for also coming up and sharing your deck with us. And hopefully the feedback was useful. It was quite funny that it contradicted someone's feedback from a couple of weeks ago, but this feedback's definitely better, so take it. Look at this group of awesome people. And that's it. Yeah, I think let's wrap it up there. That was the first ever one. We survived. Thank you very much. And I had fun. Did you guys have fun? Was that fun?
That wasn't bad. Actually.
Yeah, wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Look, I'm Irish. That means exceptional. That's as good as it gets.
Let's ask the people on the other side, maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what we think, actually.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I care what you think. It would have been good for my ego for you to say you had fun, but I'll find that somewhere else.
Cool.
All right, guys.
That was great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.